Hare Krishna. We'll continue from where we left last week. So last week, we are continuing the chapter 1. Last week we were discussing various reasons that Arjuna was providing.
Can I just step out here, Mama?
Take your adult judgment. What can I say? What's wrong, mother? You were.
Arjuna was giving various reasons why he does not want to fight. And the context is that so Pandavas and Kauravas, they all have assembled in the Kurukshetra, Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra. After assembling there, we saw how Duryodhana approached his teacher Dronacharya and Bhishma. Between them, he was speaking how and just estimating his armies and the armies on the other side. After that discussion, both sides have blown the conches to begin to. It is the way to invoke a fight. So both sides have blown the conches. After that, Arjuna requests his chariot driver, Lord Krishna, to take his chariot and place it right before the opposition party, specifically his teacher, between his teacher Dronacharya and Bhishma Dev. He just wants to see who all have come there for this great fight of arms. So in that assembly, he sees his brothers, his fathers, his uncles, his maternal uncles, his grandfather, everybody, all family relations, he sees them. And he gets overwhelmed. He gets overwhelmed with compassion. Why am I trying to fight out my relatives and kill them? Especially some of them are his teacher. They're all worshipable. My grandfather, who was his grandfather, Bhishma Dev, who was very loving to him. How can I kill my own loving relatives and those people who are worshipable for me? I need to worship them. I should not kill them. So he is overwhelmed with compassion for his relatives. So that reasoning he offered first. And then he offers another reason saying, if I kill my relatives, and all of them die, and I win the kingdom and I rule the country, what joy is there in that? If all my relatives with whom we enjoy whatever we have, if they're all killed, who am I supposed to be happy with after basically loss of enjoyment? There is nothing to enjoy with. If I have nobody else who I can enjoy with my kingdom, all my relatives are dead. What is the point in killing? What is the point in this fight? He doesn't see a reason of joy in this fight. And then thirdly, he offers the reason that with so many warriors have assembled in this fight, over a period of time, they all get killed in this fight. And basically, the entire families would be destroyed. All the women will be left over. And some unscrupulous men can take advantage of unprotected women. And all the traditions of the society will go down. There is nobody to protect the traditions. Naturally, that would lead to irreligion, and the children born of that union, they will not perform any religious duties, and all the ancestors would suffer forever, because in the traditional India, Vedic India, the pinda was a samskar that all the families do for the passed away elders of the family. The reason for pinda is, if suppose the ancestors have performed some sinful activities in their life, the pinda will help them get a physical body, because they may not be eligible to get a physical body. They might be just staying as a preta or bhuta, whatever. And that will also elevate them. It's just like, it's very simple, the way Pinda works. Suppose you have mm, suppose your parents are in India, you are here in America, for example. You just deposit some money in bank account online, and that gets deposited in their account. Just like that, I mean, it's just a software transaction. The way it works, you don't know how it is actually going to their account, but it just happens. Similarly, when you offer Pinda, the result of the Pinda would actually be uh, applied as a benefit to the ancestors. That's what we do in Sankranti. We do offer food to the elderly people who are passed away. The food that is offered to God, Vishnu, that will help them elevate in their consciousness, wherever they may be. So he offers that reason. Destruction of family will happen with all this, and he can only foresee all bad things happening by this fight. He doesn't see any good thing coming out of this fight. And then he says, if I kill my elderly people, I will be tainted with sinful reactions. This is where we are. O Janardana, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? How can we engage in the acts of sin? They may be greedy, they may be having, they may not see fault in killing family, but we are somewhat cultured. We can see the crime in doing all this fratricidal war. Why should we engage in? He thinks that by killing his family, he will be going through sinful reactions. He will get sin by doing this action. But actually, a Kshatriya is not supposed to refuse to battle or gamble when he is invited by rival parties. That's the Kshatriya would never beg anyone. That is the nature of a king or a Kshatriya. The royal people would never beg. If somebody offers fight, they have to fight. That's it. Otherwise, they have to give up their life. That's the nature of Kshatriya. So Arjuna could not refuse to fight because he had been challenged by the party of Duryodhana. In this connection, Arjuna considered that the other party might be blind to the effects of such a challenge. But Arjuna, however, could see the evil consequences and could not accept the challenge. That is his nature. He is much more cultured, intelligent, very logical. He can foresee what is coming. Because of all these attributes, he is intelligent. He is able to argue like this. He is considering their future. So he is considering all the pros and cons. And Arjuna decided to not fight. Yeah, so this is the reason I already discussed. With the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. Because the family, the men of the family would have died in this battle. So there is nobody to protect children, elderly men, and the wives of these warriors. So there will be a lot of irreligion. Adharmabhibhavat Krishna pradushyanti kulak striya strishu dustasu varshneya jayate varna shankara. When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vrishni, comes unwanted progeny. He is foreseeing all these things. When the men of the family die, the woman would be degraded by, some unscrupulous people can take advantage, and there may be unwanted children who are born of that union. He's seeing all these uh, omens coming in the future by the destruction of the family. A woman should be always protected in the beginning by the father, and after marriage by the husband, and when the husband passes away, by the children. So that is the culture in India, always. So women should always be protected. That is their nature. Women should be, other than your own wife, everybody should be seen as mother. That's why you call Mataji. Everybody should be addressed as mother. That is our culture. Yeah. 41. Shankaro narakayaiva kulasya cha patanti pitaro hyesham lupta pindodako kriya. An increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life both for the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performances for offering them food and offer are entirely stopped. So as I mentioned just now, so when the women get polluted by the unscrupulous people who take advantage, the family traditions would be stopped because they would be raised in a very bad culture, the children. So they don't necessarily perform religious duties afterwards. And this would lead, as I mentioned, this would lead stopping of all performances of offering food for the passed away ancestors. There is an interesting word spoken here by Srila Prabhupada in his purport. Yeah. Sometimes the forefathers may be suffering from various types of sinful reactions. Forefathers means those who have passed away. Maybe your grandfather or his father or his wife, whoever have passed. Sometimes some of them cannot even acquire a gross material body and are forced to remain in subtle body as ghosts. Some of them, because they might have done some sinful actions in their life, they may not even get a physical body. So ghost means a living entity which does not have physical body. Physical body means we all have physical body and a mental body. We have three levels actually, three levels of existence. One is soul, the soul proper. That is what we are at the core. Covering that soul is subtle body. Subtle body is basically made of mind, intelligence, and ego. When we change our body, when we die in this life and go to the next body, our subtle body continues. For example, you have certain desires in this life that would continue into the next life through the subtle body. Subtle body is what keeps you in this world. And the physical body gets destroyed with this life. When we die, the physical body is either cremated or burnt. It's just done. But the soul will be carried by the subtle body based on the desires of the living entity. He will be awarded a specific body according to what he deserves. We'll learn this in the future classes, but I'm just saying how it works. So in the ancestors, if suppose somebody has performed very gross sinful action, maybe he stole or he killed or whatever. So because of that sinful action, he will not be awarded a body, physical body in the next life immediately. So they may stay as ghosts. So when a person stays as ghost, if his descendants, if his children or his grandchildren, they offer this pindodaka during specific days, Tarpan days, the benefit of that goes to these ancestors who are in ghostly bodies. So they get the benefit of it and they get elevated, and they at one point they will be awarded a physical body. So that is the process that was followed in our Sanatana Dharma culture. Thus, when the remnants of prasadam are offered to forefathers by descendants, the forefathers are released from ghostly or other kinds of miserable life. Such help rendered to forefathers is a family tradition, and those who are not in devotional life are required to perform such rituals. But there is a catch here. If one performs devotional service to Vishnu, he does not need to do specific duties to the ancestors like this. That's what is mentioned. Why it is so, we will hear this. One who is engaged in devotional life is not required to perform such actions. Simply by performing devotional service, one can deliver hundreds and thousands of forefathers from all kinds of misery. So this verse states that in Bhagavatam 11th canto 5th chapter, Devarshibhutaptrinam pitrinam naking karonayanam nirajan charajan sarvatmanaya saranam sharanyam gato mukundam parihricha kartam. Anyone who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, Krishna, the giver of liberation, giving up all kinds of obligations, and he has taken to the path in all seriousness, owes neither duties nor obligations to the demigods, sages, general living entities, family members, humankind, or forefathers. If one is fully surrendered to Krishna or Mukunda, he has no obligation to perform his duties towards demigods, general living entities, family members, humankind, or forefathers. Such obligations are automatically fulfilled by the performance of devotion service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As I mentioned in the last week, God is like the root. Everybody is like a branch or a leaf. All the living entities, everything comes from Him. When you water the root of the tree, then there is no need to water each branch separately. That is the idea here. Because we live in this world, our existence in this world is possible by so many living entities. So we are naturally indebted to it. For example, we are indebted to the government because government lays the roads and there is water supply. There is all the provisions that we require to our existence in this world is provided by, for example, government. So we pay taxes in various forms, right? Because that is our duty. We are enjoying the benefits of roads, traffic lights, water, electricity, roads, everything. All these facilities are provided by government. So in return, what do? We pay taxes, and government reuses the taxes in providing more facilities. That's the transaction between us and the people or the government around us. Similarly, we're also obligated to our parents because they raise us, they provide us food, they provide everything, education, all these, right? We're all obligated to take care of our parents. Similarly, so many people in this world, the teachers who we get educated by, we are all obligated to them. And the great sages who have given this wisdom, like Bhagavad Gita, we are all obligated to them. So similarly, in the nature also we get air, water, all these are provision. Without few minutes of air, we will die. We won't even exist. So we are naturally very much obligated to so many things in this world, so many people, so many things in this world. So naturally, we need to pay our respects to them. The moment you rise, many people actually worship the earth because earth is keeping us alive in this world. You need to pay obeisances to earth. When you raise, first you pay obeisances to earth, and then pay obeisances to your guru or your parents, whoever it may be. But we're all obligated to do those things and also serve them. Right? So that is basic gratitude, because we all take benefit of this nature and we are naturally indebted to it, and we pay in reciprocation. Huh? So that is our duty. But for one who surrenders to God completely, like a sannyasi or a sage, they have no duties to anybody, because they are completely they actually serve everyone. So they don't necessarily be obligated to demigods or sages, general living entities, family members, or humankind, or forefathers. Yeah. Such obligations are automatically fulfilled by the performance of devotion service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. दोषैर एतहि कुलज्ञानं वर्णशङ्करकारकै उत्साद्यांते जाति धर्म कुलधर्माश्च शाश्वता. By the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. He is forcing all these things. If unwanted children come, they don't do any good service to this human society. Utsanna kula dharmanam manushyanam janardana narake niyatam vaso bhavatiti anushruma. O Krishna, maintainer of the people. So he used the word Janardana. Janardana means one who maintains everyone. Krishna is addressed as Janardana. Manushyanam Janardana means one who maintains all the men. Maintainer of people, O Krishna, maintainer of people, I have heard by disciplic succession that those whose family traditions are destroyed dwell always in hell. So he's saying, he's not referring, okay, I think like this or I feel like this. Whatever he's saying, all the words that he had spoken so far, they're all coming in a disciplic succession. They're not out of his speculation. It's not his understanding or his random idea. Whatever he learned from his teachers, that's what he's speaking. He's not quoting without authority. So he's saying, I have heard by disciplic succession that those whose family traditions are destroyed dwell always in hell. So he's saying, oh Krishna, you are the maintainer of people. How are you allowing me to destroy all the family? I mean, by participating in this great war, how are you allowing me to destroy the traditions? You know, when I do this, when I participate in this fight, so many people will be killed. And naturally the society will be in disorder and all the family traditions will be stopped. And because of being part of this, I may get sinful reactions, and based on that, I may end up in hell. He thinks that by participating in this war, I will actually end up in hell. I will not get. Generally, when you fight in a war, you die and you go to heaven. That's what they say. But actually, Arjuna is a pure devotee. He goes to Vaikuntha. Heaven is nothing for him. He's not even aspiring to go to heaven. But at this point, he's worried, but because he's killing his own worshipable grandfather, teacher, brothers, he's thinking by killing them, I will actually end up in hell. So very logical reasons. Let's look at every single reason. He's very cultured, intelligent. He can foresee all these things. So interestingly here, see, There is a system in the Varnashrama institution by which before death one has to undergo the process of atonement for his sinful reactions. So in the Vedic times, about say 100 years back, at least more than 100 years back, from a very long time ago, in the Vedic India, the whole society was divided, was following this Varnashrama institute. Just like we have now capitalism and socialism, some countries follow the institute of capitalism, like America here, right? Here, capitalism is the way people lead their life here. But in the traditional India, we were following Varnashrama Dharma. Varnashrama, what is Varnashrama? The society is divided into 4 Varnas. Chaturvarnam Maya Srishtam Gunakarma Vibhagasha. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita in the latter chapters. The whole society was divided, not physically dividing, but their nature, by their psychophysical nature. The society was divided into Varnas and Ashramas. In the there are 4 Varnas. The Varnas are Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. So this is how the society was divided. And this is not caste system. Many people think our caste system is bad. Yes, caste system is bad, but Varnashrama is not bad. It is based on guna and karma. Guna means your psychophysical nature. If suppose I have the nature to be a doctor, okay? If my father is a doctor, but I have no psychophysical nature to become a doctor, I won't become a doctor. But if I have that nature, I would become a doctor. So similarly, Brahmana doesn't mean that a person who is born in a Brahmana family is a Brahmana. Anybody who has a Brahmanical nature, Brahmanical means Patan Patan, Yajan Yajan, means one who performs yajnas, who teaches. These are all Brahmanical nature. So any person who does that, they are considered as Brahmanas. Actually, a son of a Brahmana or a daughter of a Brahmana is called Brahma Bandhu. Means he's a relative of Brahmana. That's how they were calling. And when actually he exhibits the nature of a Brahmana, true Brahmana, then he would be considered a Brahmana after certain age, after certain samskaras, they would become a Brahmana. Similarly, Kshatriya, one who is valorous. Kshatriya means one who protects the society. Those are called Kshatriyas. And then Vaishyas and Sudras. Vaishya means one who does merchantry, Vanijyam. Krishi Goraksha Vanijyam. So those are the duties of Krishi means crops or business, protecting cows or raising cows. These are all considered Vaishya Dharma. And then Shudra means one who has no independent living. He basically works for somebody else. So in one sense, Kalau Sudra Sambhavat. In Kali Yuga, whoever is born, they're considered as Sudras. Actually, everybody is mostly, because even somebody is born in Brahmana family, he might end up working for Microsoft or Google or Amazon. So in one way, everybody is considered as Sudra in this age, because we don't have independent living. Most of us. I mean, somebody might be running a company, but that's different. So that is Varnas. And Ashrama means, again, there are 4 ashramas, beginning with, what are the 4 ashramas? Sannyasi, right? Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Brahmachari. Brahmachari means the beginning stages. And then he enters Grihastha life. After Grihastha, when he retires, he enters Vanaprastha. Vanaprastha means he is now trying to dedicate his life to God. And then ultimately, sannyas means completely dedicated to God. So that is how So the whole system was designed towards liberation, Varnashram Dharma. So the Indian culture, anything in India, whether you take any music, arts, everything is praising God or somehow connecting with God. Look at Tyagaraja Kritis or Ramadas Kritis, or even the great kings were all great devotees. Look at Shivaji Maharaj. He was a disciple of, what is his name? Yeah, another great devotee. So our culture is like that. The whole culture of India was designed towards salvation, towards getting liberation from this world. Yeah. Aho bata mahat papam kartum vyavasita dvayam yadrajya sukalobhena hantum swajanam udyata. Alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit great sinful acts. Driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness, we are intent on killing our own kinsmen. Now, Arjuna is seeing no good reason to fight. Again, he's just pointing to the same point again and again. So how am I end up fighting in this battle? I don't see any good reason. And he sees it's going to be just a great sin. And Krishna is going to give perfect reason, break every single reasoning of Arjuna in the coming chapter. But for now, just move on listening to the wonderful reasons that Arjuna is giving. Yadi mam apratikaram sastram sastrapanaya dhartarashtra rane hanyus tanme kshema taram bhavet. Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. He's now, see, what is he saying? I don't want to participate in this battle and kill all my relatives. I may win the kingdom, I may rule the kingdom, maybe for say 100 years, 50 years. But what's the point? I taint the whole kingdom that I gain is going to be tainted with the blood of my relatives. And if that happens, I may live 40, 50 years happily, but after that, I would end up in hell because I have done this sinful action of killing my own relatives. So rather, I would just stand and let Duryodhana and his brothers, let them unarmed, let them just kill me instead. I don't want to fight in this battle. Let them kill me unarmed. This is very unexpected of a great fighter like Arjuna. Arjuna was the best fighter in the world at the time. There is nobody, no comparison to his fighting abilities. And he learned with that gusto also. He's the best student of Dronacharya and always focused on, when he gets few minutes, he would just go and practice archery. That's the nature of king, and that's not just to show off, it's just to protect the kingdom. And there is no comparison to his fighting abilities. And such a great fighter is saying, I just want to stand unarmed and be killed unresisting in this battle. And Prabhupada says all these symptoms are due to soft-heartedness resulting from his being a great devotee of the Lord. He is a great devotee of Lord. It is mentioned that when Arjuna breathes, right? We just breathe, right? When we breathe, our heart beats and there is a sound that comes. It is mentioned that when Arjuna breathes, it would sound like Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. That's how the sound comes. That's how much he loves Krishna. So all these symptoms are due to soft-heartedness resulting from his being a great devotee of the Lord. Sanjaya Uvacha. Now after hearing all of this, now Sanjaya relating. Evam uktva Arjuna Sankhye Ratopasta upavisat Visrajya sasaram chapam Sokasam Vignamanasah. Sanjaya said, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. The unexpected happened now. The great warrior who has conquered even Lord Shiva in his fight, who has conquered the greatest demigods, Chitraratha, and who had the blessings of all the demigods, and unconquerable hero Arjuna now cast aside his bow and sat down in his chariot, overwhelmed with grief. This is totally unexpected, and this is a moment of fight. You cannot give up at this time. And Arjuna did the most unexpected thing at this time, at this juncture. He just put down his bow, sat down, emotions overtook him, just completely overwhelmed with grief. His mind is totally dumbed down, just he sat down there. So thus ends the first chapter of Gita. When observing the situation of his army, Arjuna stood up on the chariot, but he was so afflicted with lamentation that he sat down again. Setting aside his bow and arrows, such a kind and soft-hearted person in the devotion service of Lord is fit to receive self-knowledge. Now it's like a fertile land preparing to take a sapling of plant. Right? When earth is softened, that's when it can take a nice sapling and the sapling grows nicely. Similarly, Arjuna's state of mind is perfectly situated to receive self-knowledge at this time. So that's the context for this chapter now. So this ends the first chapter. Before we begin the second chapter, now that we have a batch that is stabilized, about 15, 20, I mean, there are families, 2-3 people in certain cases. I would like to request you to just announce your name and where you are from, and just speak about what inspired to learn Gita, just in one word, in 1 or 2 lines. Quickly, that way we know each other better. I'm just waiting all these days just to stabilize the batch. There'll be a few more will join next week. Some said they could not join this week. But I would request you, before starting the second chapter, which is going to be very, very interesting now. Now we have set the context for Gita. I would like to just know each of you a little more. I have spoken to some of you. We just want to hear once again. We are like a group of friends. We just want to hear from each of you quickly. You can state your name, where you are from, and what is inspiring you to join us. Okay? So I will call out the names. That way it's easy to manage this thing. Is that okay with everyone? I hope so.
Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna, Varalakshmi Mataji.
Prabhuji, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. My name is Varalakshmi. I'm from in Washington. We moved 2 years back. So I stay in Crossroads. And in India, I'm from Andhra Pradesh.
Oh, Andhra Pradesh. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, I heard many times previously that Bhagavad Gita has all the solutions for all the problems in our life. So I was very curious, like what is that content of Bhagavad Gita. So I purchased a book of Bhagavad Gita myself when I was in my native. But I never opened the book and I never read it. It was still in the puja room.
It happens. It happened with me also. I got the first copy of Gita way back in like when I'm early teens, but I never opened it up. Yeah.
So it was still in the puja room. I never opened it. I never read even a single page also. So when I got the message from the about the Bhagavad Gita classes, so I thought maybe like instead of myself reading on my own and getting and because if I start reading on I'm on my own, I know that I don't understand anything. So if somebody is guiding me, so maybe I'll get some, like even though I may not get all the 100% summary, so maybe at least if I get some 5% also, I can carry on
Yeah.
my own with that interest.
Yes, you very perfectly said. Very good reasoning.
So that's the reason I joined mainly for the classes. And in every time I look forward for the classes, because whenever I join the class in the meeting, I am 100% sure that I will learn something new from you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I like to share it with my family also. We keep discussing about what are the things that are happening in the meeting.
Very nice. Very nice. Very nice. Thank you so much.
So yeah, thank you very much.
Very good. Nice to hear you. Uma Sajid Kumar. May I request you to speak?
Hello.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hello, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I'm from Bothell here. In India, back in India, I'm from Bangalore. The reason for me to join Bhagavad Gita classes, like, I want to learn, like, I never read, Bhagavad Gita, but I heard it's like, it gives a lot of solution, for your problems. And not only that, I want to pass on this to my kids also. So like when I'm attending the class, like I when I get solutions, like, like, okay, sometimes like what happens, like, why am I suffering this? So when I get the answer from from your previous classes, it's like from your previous birth karma, what you're doing. So I get like a lot of relief. Okay, yeah. So I always feel like whenever I attend the class, I keep getting some or the other answers for my solution, I mean for my problems. So it I even most of the time, sometimes even my son also tries to listen, and sometimes he doesn't understand, but still I want him to also attend the class, so that even he also learns and how to be in life. So it's like it's really wonderful, this class. I even tell to my parents also, like, that sometimes whatever happens, so I say, when I tell them, then even they also like, it's really nice. I can just say that it's wonderful for me to join this class.
Thank you. And actually, as you mentioned, Bhagavad Gita has answers to all the questions of life.
Yes.
There is nothing
Yes.
that will be unanswered. When we complete this Gita course completely, you have such clarity on life, purpose of life, why you are living, and you can face any situation in life, no matter what, how difficult it may be. That is the inner strength to develop. Just like we do physical exercise to develop our body, right, physically. So
Yeah.
similarly, knowledge of Gita is going to build our inner strength. Because most people in this world, what is the real problem? Physically, externally, we're all good. But inside, we are so weak. That is the reason of so many depressions, especially in America. So many people have psychological problems. Every other person we meet, they have a family psychologist they go to. I mean, not so much in Indians, but Americans especially. They get depressed so easily. And it is such an important decision you have taken to learn this wisdom and share with your family. And there is nothing better, and Krishna's blessing and protection will always be with you when you do. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Sudha Mataji, Sudha Gulkandia Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
So, Prabhuji, I'm from Washington,
Mhm.
and in India, I'm from Rajasthan.
Okay.
So my grandmother, my family lineage, my grandmother was a huge Krishna Bhakt,
Mhm.
right? We used to worship all the gods, like we used to celebrate Ram Navami, Janmashtami, and Shivji and Devi Ma, but she was a huge Krishna Bhakt. And growing up, like I never understood it, but when my grandmother grew old, I used to read her Bhagavad stories.
Mm.
She used to tell me to read Bhagavad, and I still remember the Gajendra story, and I did not realize that that story had such a big impact on
Yeah, Chandra Moksha. No?
Gajendra Moksha. So we grew up with this kind of atmosphere, and I never systematically read the Bhagavad Gita. Uh, whenever I tried to read it, like whenever I started my this journey of reading Bhagavad Gita, somehow it was interrupted by some major crisis in my life. Like a lot of painful things happened in my life.
Mm.
So this is an opportunity for me, uh, of learning the Bhagavad Gita again. I didn't I did some part of Gita, but I could not continue it. So I'm hoping that this time I will be able to understand the entire Gita. And I have lot of questions, lot of questions. That's why I keep on bothering you all the time. But
You have very good questions, actually.
thank you so much, and I really this I'm very grateful for being the part of this class.
Thank you so much. Yeah, wonderful. You already have a very good cultural background, and now that you are continuing on that path, very good. So continue on this, and I will pray to Krishna that you continue this without any interruptions this time.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. And then Aranya Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, are you able to hear that?
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
So Prabhuji, I mean, you already know the reasons, but I'll just for everybody's benefit, I'll talk about that. We are basically from Kerala, but we live in Sammamish. My dad used to be a Sanskrit scholar, so growing up, definitely we talked about, the Bhagavad Gita, and we watched Mahabharata and Ramayana stories at least, I'm sure, like 50 times on TV. So every time my dad used to tell me that, if you watch it, I would keep asking him, why do you make me watch it again? I've watched this at least, so many times. And he would say, every time you watch it again, you learn something new. Bhagavad Gita, like I've listened to, that I used to come to the temple for the past like 5 years now. And then I used to hear Harilas Maharaj like talk about like these lessons, lectures on Sunday evenings, but I never got a chance to like systematically study the Bhagavad Gita. And I lost my dad a year and a half ago. He was like the center, the rock of my life. He was always there for me for everything. And when I lost him, I like felt like that was a new low. I have never hit that bottom, like rock bottom, where I was really sad and depressed, and I just couldn't understand what was happening. And even though I had all this spiritual background, I just did not have the strength to bear the pain. And then I realized that, okay, there is much more to life. Like, why is there so much suffering in life? I do need to figure out answers to some of these questions. So we decided that we'll start learning, and we got this opportunity. Divya Mataji, she is the one who shared the details in the group, and we are totally grateful to Krishna and to you for giving us this opportunity to learn this. So we listen to this as a family. My older one, 7-year-old, he and my husband and my mom and my baby who's 6 months old. So we all sit and listen together. And this has definitely been a blessing.
Prabhu is there?
Yes, he's here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, how are you?
Thank you
Um,
for joining, Prabhu.
So I'm not going to be as Aranya said, we are already from Sammamish. She's given a background where we are from.
Wonderful.
I want to say what inspired me to learn Bhagavad Gita is to get some guidance from the Gita on how I can improve myself or kind of pursue the path of self-improvement and be a better person for the society, for my family, and also kind of pass on those virtues, whatever I learn, to my sons here, my older son, and eventually my younger one too.
Wonderful, Prabhu. All of you, I mean, if you can attend with your husband, Mataji's, Sudha Mataji, Uma Mataji, Varalakshmi Mataji, it will be good to learn together as a family. That will be nice. If you can, if it happens, that will be far more beneficial. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Shivani, the youngest here.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. The reason why I felt inspired to join this class is because I was joining Haridas Maharaj's Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam classes in the morning. I still am. And so he would always like teach us like lessons from the Bhagavad Gita. So I was always like interested from then. I just wanted to learn like Bhagavad Gita systematically, like by verse by verse. So that's why I joined this class. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. Hello, Prabhakaraniya. You want to say something? Hello, Aniya. Are you there? Okay, we'll come back.
Voice was on that?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Fine. I'm very happy to follow you. So much I am learning. Very interesting, and I learn more and more from you. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much. Prabhakaran is my cousin.
I'm from India. Hello.
Yeah, Aniya, I can hear you.
Thank you. I'll call you again.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for joining. It is very early to you, almost 5, but you are sincerely joining. Thank you so much. Sagar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So here I am living in Redmond from India. I am from Hyderabad, Telangana. So from many years ago, I thought like somehow I have to start reading Bhagavad Gita, but it didn't happen. But recently, from 1 year ago, I went to ISKCON temple in Sammamish, and I got to hear about the DYS. So I attended classes from Ganesh Prabhuji. So at that time I was like, I was in depressed mood. So I thought like, okay, there are some solutions we'll get from Bhagavad Gita. I thought of learning it, start the journey. So I joined Ganesh Prabhuji's classes. They were really very, very helpful for me. So from there onwards, then I'm continuing my journey.
Very nice.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for you.
Background already, because you already learned DYS. All the fundamentals are all very strongly there. Yeah. Very nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
So as you mentioned, this whole material atmosphere is like that. The way it works naturally depresses whether you are rich or poor, or you have a big position or a low position, you are a very well-known person or unknown person, doesn't matter. This whole material atmosphere is such that it's going to give you a lot of anxiety.
Right.
Our inside is strong. We are going to tumble at some point. It's just a matter of time. So yeah, you're very much in the right path of learning this self-knowledge, Gita wisdom. Thank you so much, Sagar Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Rutvik Prabhu.
Yeah, namaste, Prabhuji. Actually, my name is Archana. Rutvik is my son's name.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I am a comedian from Mumbai. I'm settled here in Sammamish for the past 16 years or so. As far as this class, yeah, I mean, I guess I just wanted to, I mean, being a Hindu, I, know our stories like Ramayana, Mahabharata, but haven't spent a whole lot of time, understanding our more spiritual texts. So that was number one reason. And moreover, I guess, being here, life feels, very materialistic. Like I work in a tech firm, it's a very corporate culture. You're always like, there is so much competition. And I always have this sense of not having, enough time to focus on my kids, on my family. So you start questioning as you get older, what is the purpose of your life? There has to be more to it than all of this. And you have this feeling of guilt of not being able to, spend enough time with your parents, with your children, whatever it is. So given that, the Bhagavad Gita has answers to all of these questions, just trying to understand, just trying to understand it a little bit better and, how we apply the principles of the Bhagavad Gita in our day-to-day, modern life today.
Yeah, we have spoken a very subtle point, actually, very powerful point. You mentioned what is, I have studied, I was raised by my parents all my life, in my young age, I studied, I got a job. And then next what, I'm married, I got a family, and now I'm raising kids. And they get married, they get educated, they get married. And what is this? What is going on? What is the purpose of love? Is it to just study, job, marriage, children, and their marriage, and then just die, or what? Is there no real purpose? Am I just here to just do all these things? That's it? No, actually, there is a much higher purpose to life. And when we learn that purpose, life is going to become much more interesting. And that's what we're going to learn, beginning with second chapter.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely want to inculcate the culture and the learnings of the Gita and, Hinduism in general. Just want my kids also to understand and, continue the traditions of our culture and spiritual texts.
Correct. And this is the most powerful text that can really give inner strength. And if we don't pass on to our family, kids, actually we are losing the biggest opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So very wonderfully spoken. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Rajnikant Bhagar, you want to say something?
Good morning, Hare Krishna Prabhu Garu. Myself from Hyderabad. So actually all these years, definitely we had a lot of times Gita Upadeshams, maybe in piecemeals, in television or through other preachers. But I'm very fortunate that this time you have started weekly classes like discussions or just a preaching class. Secondly, every day you are sending that messages, very inspiring from our Gita Upadesham. So starting Sunday with a fine morning here in India with your preaching, so really we were very fortunate because all this we know what Gita says, but what happens that at a fine time we forget it also. All these things and all these good things that our Gita is preaching. So
how do you
I'm very thankful. All the time we are getting reminded.
Yeah. And over a period of time that becomes your second nature.
Yes.
You learn every day something.
Yes, that's necessary.
Second nature, and you start responding to the world with this knowledge over a period of time. It takes time. It's not going to happen over
Good. But actually we have to imbibe it in our life. Whole this week, whatever we learned this morning, we had a lot of time in the week to bring in practical form. So that's when we get achieving things.
Very, very well. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Hello, Hare Krishna, Nitin Prabhu. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So I'm not a new student for Bhagavad Gita. I have already been studying in the another batch. My name is Nitun Mujumdar. I live in Redmond. It's been 15 years now in this area. From India, I'm from Maharashtra. And I got introduced to Bhagavad Gita through, I mean, I used to go to temple and I kind of gone through the serial Mahabharata thinking that these 2 episodes talk about Bhagavad Gita. I exactly know everything now. And then in temple, they used to come and tell me, if you know the Bhagavad Gita, do you like to take test? And I said, no, I know it. So why I need to take a test? And then suddenly there was one highly scholar person here. His name was Madhav Chandra Das Prabhu, and he used to come to temple and he says, Prabhu, come to Bhagavad Gita class and sleep. That's okay, just come. The moment I attended the first class, I just said, okay, this is the class. I have been waiting my whole life and I want to attend every single class. But then when I joined, we were on the 3rd chapter. Now to talk about, we are like almost on the 18th chapter, but I met Prabhuji last year and I know Prabhuji from last 3-4 years now. Prabhuji, to talk about Prabhu, just give me 1 minute, Prabhu. Sorry, I'm not eligible to talk about you, but I want to make a little attempt to say that Prabhuji has been highly scholar and he's been studied under the extremely great scholar, very humble devotee. His guru's name is Radhesham Prabhu. That's where Prabhu learned the Bhagavad Gita and all of the scriptures. And Prabhu has been leading an effort of Bhagavad Gita DYS class Bhagavatam in Seattle area. And he himself has taught 2 to 3 Bhagavad Gita classes. It's called Bhakti Shastri course. And I talked to Prabhuji last year that, Prabhu, I want to also attend your classes. And then he reminded me that, hey, I'm starting a new class. Do you want to join? So I said that I will join first few chapters because of the commitment. But if Krishna allows me, I'll definitely like to attend all your classes because it's a very pleasure to hear from Prabhu, who has been extremely very humble as well as practicing Bhagavad Gita principles day to day his life, as well as he's teaching others, sharing all the principles with the nice examples that he has studied and understood. So thank you, Prabhuji, for giving me opportunity to hear from you.
Thank
so
you.
I really
You all
feel
know
blessed.
all of this, but still you are so humble. You are attending us.
No, Prabhuji.
You know all of this. I know how sincerely you serve in the temple every week. Thank you for setting such a good example for all of us. Yeah.
No, Prabhuji, I just want to just be a servant of servants and learn something just as a Tattva-Jnana, as a spiritual philosophy. That's our goal of life.
Thank you so much for joining. And you can always speak something if some good example comes to your mind. Please feel free to speak it because that will help others. We are helping.
Sure, Prabhu, sure. I just want to be a little silent initially because there's so many people want to have questions, listens from you. So I don't want to interrupt that process, that teaching. So
because you are aware of all this knowledge. So feel free anytime you feel like you want to add a point.
No, Prabhu, every class I feel that I'm starting from new. It's like it says that in cricket ground, when the batsman faces the ball, it's a kind of fresh ball for him, every single ball. So for me, it's every single verse, every single thing is very fresh again. So
wonderful. Thank you for joining. Ganesh Prabhuji.
Yeah. Hello, Prabhuji. My name is Ganesh. I'm here in the Northern Virginia area. So the reason for me attending the class is I grew up in a pretty ritualistic like environment towards like Hinduism in general. By that, what I mean is, on like Fridays you do something, and on the like festivals you do something. My parents were not really very deeply like religious. They were just doing the things, and I was also kind of doing the things. And as a result of it, I was never really very into it, and I didn't see that as a problem, like growing up. But as many others have said, right, as you kind of grow up, and I'm now in my 40s, you have some like life experiences and challenges, etc. What I found was that people who are more spiritual are usually in a better spot, right? Whenever there are difficult like situations, they're just able to manage better. So that's kind of my interest, to understand religion more deeply and also become hopefully more like spiritual. So that's my interest in kind of joining this. And again, like someone else mentioned, I do like appreciate you sending those daily things. I think that really keeps us on like a regular basis.
Yeah.
So again, thank you very much. I think appreciate it.
Thank you, Ganesh Prabhu. You have very good questions as well. You asked offline. Very good questions. You are very curious, want to learn. Yeah, that's the nature. That's the nature we look for. I mean, those people who have natural inquisitiveness to learn Gita will learn much better, faster. And as you mentioned, in India, we still have rituals. But that is the only thing that is remaining, unfortunately. People do rituals, they do certain pujas, but they do because they were told to in their family, or they were doing in their family, they were doing, and so they are doing it. But many of us do not know the spiritual reason for it. We know the ritual, but the spiritual aspect of it is missing. And when we learn Gita, we learn the bigger picture of all of this. Why we do what we do. Almost we discuss many things. Nothing that is cultural part of India is just a blind ritual. Everything has a very clear purpose. The way we do Ekadasi, it has a perfect scientific reasoning as well. And the reasoning is not just physical, bodily. It is also spiritual. That is, and the main consideration is always the spiritual thing, not the material thing. So by learning spiritual knowledge, we improve spiritually. That is the main benefit. But our material side would also be taken care of. That is the, we call it side benefit. Yeah. So that's what is going to happen. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your idea and why you want to continue on this path. Thank you. Yeah. Ashwin Prabhu, Ashwin Joshi.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. This is Ashwin Joshi. Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Thanks for doing this class. So I'm from the Northern Virginia area as well. And the reason for me to join this particular class was, as some of the folks have said, I grew up in India watching Mahabharata and Ramayana. And as kids, I guess we didn't really understand a lot of whys and the reasoning behind it. And as we grew up and as we went into adulthood, we didn't necessarily, at least I did not keep in touch with the religion. As Ganesh was mentioning, we would do a lot of these rituals in India. And as I came here, those started getting lesser and lesser. I wouldn't do it as much. And as I got married, my wife is religious, so we definitely go to the temple and we do a lot of rituals. But again, the core key part is haven't really understood as to why we do certain things. So off late, I started looking up. I wanted to read up on the sacred texts, the Vedas and Gitas, and haven't ever made the time or the effort to look at it. But once one of our friends sent this class link to us, I thought, okay, maybe this is the opportunity for me to actually join the class, understand the rationale, the reason, the wisdom of the Gita. So that's the reason I joined this class.
Thank you, Ashwin Prabhu. Yeah, so we are all here actually to learn the reason behind why we do what we do. Yeah, that is one reason. That's going to give us intellectual understanding of what we are doing. And besides that, we also have a transformative effect of this wisdom itself. So that will be the main thing. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, and then Ramesh Aniya, you want to say something?
Hi.
Hi. Tell me.
I'm from Vizianagaram, from Andhra Pradesh, India.
Mm-hmm.
As you know very much that I have started this journey from 2004, but till now, I couldn't start at least. What I mean to say is, in 2004, I have started reading this Bhagavad Gita. One of my friends told that better go for vegetarian so that it will be helpful. So I left the non-veg. It took almost 1.5 years. By 2005 June, I left non-veg, but I couldn't catch Gita. What's this? I couldn't complete Gita also, and I couldn't grasp the knowledge. Later, somehow I left the Gita and again started non-veg. And again, I think some around in 2008, you have visited Vizianagaram. At that time, again in some class, you were mentioning about Atma. In that class, you have pointed me that you are not Ramesh, you are Atma. I was unable to understand. What is this Atma? I am Ramesh. How can you tell that I am Atma? But somehow it ignited me. And again, I have started living this non-veg since 2010 till now. I am able to live the life with as a vegetarian. It is easy for me to leave the non-veg, but it is very difficult for me to stay stable. I am always wandering here and there. But one thing, I had a single point agenda. Just in my life, before completing this life, I should know who am I.
Yeah.
Who am I? So somehow I am doing everything, but doing this bhakti yoga, that is you also told me to chant this Hare Krishna. It is really excellent, but I am somewhat fascinated with the what is that Jnana Yoga. So, but I am unable to sustain with Jnana Yoga. But it is very easy with Bhakti Yoga. But I am not fascinated with it. So somehow again I am trying to learn both. No, not just being this. Better, why can't we go for both? So again, I am interested in hearing this Bhagavad Gita. So as you have proposed me, I have joined this group. I think at least my purpose will serve with this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Bhagavad Gita, by the way, is also full of jnana. There is somebody is asking for password. Just yeah, Bhagavad Gita is also jnana, self-knowledge. It has nothing that is there is nothing that is not there. It's, all the self-knowledge is there. So, how do I get that? Yeah, so I need to open my WhatsApp quickly to share. Yeah, so should we end the class today? Because it's already late now. Okay, I think we'll end the class here. It's already 6:20. It'll be too late to start second chapter now. So thank you for sharing, with you on your journey and as well as what inspired you to join this class. I'm very happy to hear all of you. And anytime if you have anything as a question, don't worry about, oh, is this question too easy, too simple? Just message me. If not immediately, I'll answer within 2-3 days. Because sometimes I may be busy at work or whatever, but I would answer at some point. So that is how it should be. I mean, you can ask in the class towards the end. That way we don't interrupt the class too much. If it cannot, I mean, if the question is that something that blocks your understanding of the next verse itself, then you can ask right away in the class at the time itself. Yeah, so there is no problem. We are a small group. We don't have a lot of people. So feel free to always ask questions anytime you have, because doubts are going to block our understanding further always. So in the beginning stages especially, sometimes I might miss speaking some important points because I would assume certain things that you know or not know, whatever. So if something is unclear for whatever reasons, always feel free to ask questions right away or towards the end of the class or in the messages afterwards. Okay. Also we can invite more people. Actually, there are 100 people in the group, but there is only initial enthusiasm. After that, some people slowly drop. Generally, we see always around 15 to 20 people that stabilize towards the end of the batch. And that's what is happening with this batch also. Some people said they're watching online because they can't attend at this time, 4 or 5 people. But it is always good to attend in person. That way, there is an interaction. Otherwise, there are so many things we can hear online. But we don't respect that as much. When you attend in the course, there is a direct transmission of knowledge. So it's much more, it's much more efficient way of acquiring the knowledge. And so I recommend you to be there in the class always if possible, unless there is a health emergency or whatever other reasons, office or whatever. But let's continue this journey. All of you are there. We already completed chapter 1. And I'll also teach some practical wisdom, because without that, this knowledge doesn't work from inside. Knowledge you're taking, but you also need some yoga, bhakti yoga. We will learn that at some point in the middle or end of the second chapter. That way you streamline both the things. You practice something every day and you learn every week this wisdom. That way you will be balanced. You would sustain this wisdom, and slowly this wisdom starts working in your life. Okay, so we will end the class here for today. And thank you for sharing again. And we will again meet next week, again at 5 p.m. Thank you all. Thank you. Bye. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Hare
Martin. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you, Mama. Hello, Ania. ఇది ఎక్కడ ట్రైనా? మీరు ఎక్కడ ఉన్నారు? ఇంట్లో లేదా? Ania?
ఏదో ట్రై చేస్తున్నారు.
ఏడనియను ఎక్కడ? ఇంటి మేడ మీద ఉన్నావా ఏంటి?
నేను మేడ ఇంట్లో మా వాళ్ళు లేచాడు, ఆడు పరిగెడతాడు.
కరోనా ఇప్పుడు చాలా దారుణంగా ఉంది ఇండియాలో. చాలా కేర్ఫుల్గా ఉండాలి.
మీకు చెప్పాము, ఇప్పుడు మీరు మాకు చెప్పాల్సి వస్తుంది. మరి ఏం చేస్తాం, అలా ఉంది పరిస్థితి. జాగ్రత్త జాగ్రత్త, సరుకులు తెచ్చుకొని నేను మీకు చెప్పాను, కానీ ఇక్కడ మాకు అయిపోతుంది. హాయ్ అక్క.
హాయ్ హాయ్
హాయ్ అక్క.
హాయ్ వెంకటేష్.
బాగుంది, చాలా బాగుంది.
హాయ్ బాగా
మాట్లాడారు.
రియల్లీ చాలా ఎన్రిచింగ్ అవుతుంది నాలెడ్జ్. రెండోది డైలీ మెసేజ్ కూడా చాలా అంటే నీట్ గా క్లీన్ గా అంటే సింపుల్ గా ఉన్న అర్థం అవుతుంది ట్రాన్స్క్రిప్షన్.
ఆయన బాగా ఆయన మా టీచరు.
శ్రీనివాస్ బయట ఉన్నట్టుగా ఉన్నారు ఇక్కడ.
శ్రీని
బైక్ మీద నా బైక్
ఎవ్రీ వీక్ మీరు అటెండ్ అవుతున్నారు రెగ్యులర్ గా. దట్ ఈస్ ఇంపార్టెంట్. ఆటోమేటిక్గా ఇట్ స్టార్ట్స్ వర్కింగ్. మీకు దగ్గరలో టెంపుల్ ఉన్నాయా?
ఇక్కడ హైదరాబాద్ లో ఉంటున్నాను. వాయిస్ ఉన్నాయండి.
ఇస్కాన్ టెంపుల్ హైదరాబాద్.
ఇస్కాన్ టెంపుల్ మా ఆఫీస్ దగ్గర ఉన్నది. చెప్పండి.
యా, సో అక్కడ మీకు బీట్స్ గట్రా దొరుకుతాయి, జపం చేసుకునే బీట్స్. నేను జపం గురించి ఒక క్లాస్ చెప్తాను, ఆ తర్వాత యూ కెన్ ఆల్సో వర్క్ ఆన్ జప. జప ఈజ్ ద మెయిన్ థింగ్. జప విల్ చేంజ్.
తప్పకుండా తీసుకుని రెడీ అవుతుంది.
వెరీ గుడ్ బాగా.
ఓకే, థ్యాంక్స్ అండి.
పెద్దమ్మ గారు జాయిన్ అవ్వలేదు ఈ రోజు. పెద్దమ్మ గారు ఎవ్రీ వీక్ జాయిన్
అంటే అత్తకి గ్రూప్ లో లేనట్టుకున్నారు. అత్త పేరు అయినా నేను పంపించాను.
గ్రూప్ లో యాడ్ చేస్తాను, నంబర్ లేదు నా దగ్గర. మీరు పంపిస్తారు బాగా.
సంజత్కి నేను చెప్తాను అయితే మరొకసారి.
యా, ఒకసారి చెప్పండి.
అయితే మనం ఎవరైనా యాడ్ చేయొచ్చా ఇంట్రెస్టెడ్ గా ఉన్నవాళ్ళని?
యా,
ఇన్వైట్ చేయొచ్చా ఎవరినైనా ఇంట్రెస్ట్?
ఎవరైనా ఇంట్రెస్ట్ ఉంటే, మెయిన్ ఇంట్రెస్ట్ ఉన్న వాళ్ళని యాడ్ చేసుకుంటే
అదే ఉంది.
హ్యాపీ టు లెర్న్. ఇట్స్ ఓపెన్ ఫర్ ఎవ్రీవన్.
కరెక్ట్, థ్యాంక్స్ అండి. చాలా బాగుంది. ఓకే అండి, నమస్కారం.
ఉంటాను రానియా.
హలో
రమేష్.
హాయ్ బాగారు. మొత్తానికి మీ ఇల్లు చూపిస్తావు.
చూపించమంటావు? నువ్వు కరోనా అయిపోయి కదా
ఎక్కడ బాగా ఉంటున్నారు? హైదరాబాద్.
హైదరాబాద్ లో ఉన్నా. ఇక్కడ ఆర్టీసీ క్రాస్ రోడ్స్ అని, అంటే ఆఫీస్ ఏమో అబిట్స్ లో ఉంది. ఎక్కడైతే ఇస్కాన్ టెంపుల్ ఉందో జస్ట్ వెనక్ స్ట్రీట్ లోనే ఉన్నాడు.
ఆర్టీసీ క్రాస్ రోడ్స్ దగ్గరే.
దగ్గరే, కొంచెం ఒక 10-15 minutes పడుతూ ఉంటుంది ఆఫీస్ వెళ్ళడానికి. బాగానే ఉంది రెసిడెన్షియల్ ఏరియా అంతా.
వెరీ గుడ్, వెరీ గుడ్. ఎన్నాళ్ళైంది హైదరాబాద్ వచ్చారు బాగా?
నేను 1.5 years, October 18 లో వచ్చాను. October 18 అంటే ఒక ఎగ్జామ్ రాశాను, దాంట్లో ప్రమోషన్ వచ్చింది. దీని మీద ఇక్కడికి వచ్చాను.
కంగ్రాచులేషన్స్.
అసిస్టెంట్ అకౌంట్స్ ఆఫీసర్ అండి.
వెరీ గుడ్, వెరీ గుడ్, వెరీ గుడ్.
బాగున్నారు అందరూ?
అందరూ బాగున్నారు.
ఓకే, థ్యాంక్స్. నెక్స్ట్ క్లాస్ లో మీట్ అవుదాం. ఓకే, ఓకే, బాయ్ రమేష్. పెద్దమ్మ చెప్తాను, నెక్స్ట్ సండే క్లాస్ తప్పకుండా రమ్మ. నెంబర్ కూడా పంపిస్తుంది. ఓకే, రైట్. ఓకే, హరే కృష్ణ. రైట్.
అయితే హలో
చెప్పరా.
అయితే ఇప్పుడు నెక్స్ట్ క్లాస్ లో స్టార్ట్ అవుతాయా ఇవన్నీ?
మరి అదే కదా మెయిన్ సబ్జెక్ట్.
దానికోసమే వెయిటింగ్. ప్రతిసారి లేస్తున్నాం కానీ పట్టుకోలేకపోతున్నాం. ఈసారి ఏమో తెచ్చుకోవాలి.
జపం చేయడం మొదలుపెట్టిదే నీకు దాని ఎఫెక్ట్ ఉంటుంది జనరల్ గా.
అది చేయడం సులువే అంటారా, కానీ చెప్పాను కదా నాకు ఉన్న ఈ మైండ్ కి డ్యూయల్ మైండ్ సెట్ కి అది పట్టుకోవాలని అదే ఇది పట్టుకోవాలి ఇటు వచ్చి అటు ఇటు కాకుండా మధ్యలో పడ్డు. అదే బాధ.
చూడు దీనికి పర్ఫెక్ట్ గా వర్క్ అవుట్. దేర్ ఇస్ నో కలియుగానికి ఇదే ప్రాసెస్. హరి నామ జపం. దిస్ ఇస్ ద బెస్ట్.
ఈసారి అయితే నేను అదే అందుకు అసలు అది ఇది అనుకోకుండా ఏదైనా కొట్టుకుని వెళ్ళిపోవడమే అంతే. మరి అమ్మకి చెప్తాను, అమ్మ నువ్వు చేయమ్మ ఇదమ్మ అని. అమ్మకి రాత్రి పూట కాలు పెట్టేటప్పుడు అరగంట 30 గంట చేస్తాను. నాకు బాగా ఎంత చెప్పిన ఆలోచన అనిపించేది. తర్వాత అవును అసలు నేనే అంటారు కదా ఇంక ఇలాగే. సరే మనం చెప్పడం కాదు, మనం చేసుకోవాలి ఇంకా ముందు చేస్తున్నా. పిల్లలు బాగా ఉన్నారా? చిన్నదే మంచి ఉత్సాహం.
అది డబ్బులు తగ్గించుకుంటుంది.
సరే అయితే ఉంటాను అయితే. ఓకే బాయ్.